Have you ever looked back on a situation and thought, why did I let them treat me that way? Maybe it was a friend who always took advantage of your kindness, a colleague who consistently disrespected your boundaries, or even a partner who made you feel small. Here's the truth: people will treat you how you let them. This isn't about blaming yourself, it's about reclaiming your power. Every day, through our actions, words, and silence, we teach others how to engage with us. If we accept poor behavior even once, we unintentionally give permission for it to continue. But when we set clear standards and uphold them, we create the blueprint for healthy, respectful relationships in every area of life. Setting the standard doesn't mean being rude, harsh, or defensive. It means honoring yourself enough to say, this is what I expect, this is what I deserve. And the beautiful thing is, when you raise your standards, the right people rise to meet them. So today, I want to share 7 powerful ways to set the standard and ensure that people treat you with the respect and dignity you're worthy of. Before you can teach others how to treat you, you must first understand what you truly deserve. Knowing your worth isn't just a nice idea, it's the foundation of every boundary you'll ever set and every relationship you'll ever have. It's about recognizing that your time, energy, voice, and presence have value, and refusing to settle for anything less than what aligns with your values, goals, and well-being. When you don't know your worth, you become vulnerable to accepting less respect, less honesty, less effort. You might find yourself over-explaining, over-giving, or constantly trying to prove your value to others who aren't offering you the same in return. But when you know your worth, you operate from a place of quiet confidence. You don't chase validation, you don't beg for loyalty, you don't make excuses for poor behavior. Instead, you calmly and clearly draw the line between what's acceptable and what isn't. Knowing your worth starts with introspection. Take time to reflect on your strengths, your experiences, your resilience, and the unique perspective you bring to the table. Recognize your inherent dignity not because of what you do for others, but because of who you are. This self-awareness gives you the clarity and courage to say no without guilt and yes without fear. Also, understand that worth is not negotiable. It doesn't fluctuate based on someone else's treatment of you or whether they approve of you. Your worth is not determined by your relationship status, job title, number of followers, or how useful others find you. It is a constant, and the more firmly you believe in it, the less likely you are to allow mistreatment or disrespect to take root. Surround yourself with people who reflect your value back to you. Pay attention to how you feel after spending time with certain individuals. Are you uplifted or drained, seen or overlooked, respected or dismissed? Your environment plays a powerful role in how you perceive your own value. The more you align with relationships and spaces that honor you, the stronger your self-worth becomes. Ultimately, knowing your worth is a lifelong practice. It requires regular check-ins with yourself, a willingness to heal from past wounds that made you question your value, and the discipline to uphold your standards even when it's uncomfortable. But the reward is freedom, the freedom to live, love, and lead on your own terms, without compromising your dignity. Clear communication is one of the most essential tools in setting the standard for how others treat you. Yet, it's often one of the most overlooked. Many people assume that others should just know what their boundaries are or what behavior is or isn't acceptable, but the truth is, unspoken expectations often lead to repeated disappointments. Communicating clearly means being direct, honest, and specific about your needs, your limits, and your values, not in a confrontational or aggressive way, but with calm conviction. It means not sugarcoating your feelings, avoiding conflict, or hoping someone will read between the lines. Ambiguity invites misinterpretation, and misinterpretation can lead to crossed boundaries, hurt feelings, and power imbalances. For example, if you don't like when someone speaks to you in a condescending tone, say it. If you're overwhelmed and need space, express that. If a friend consistently shows up late and it bothers you, address it directly. When you make your expectations known, you remove the guesswork and give people the opportunity to show up the right way. Many people struggle with this because they fear being seen as rude, dramatic, or difficult. But there is nothing rude about clarity. In fact, respectful, assertive communication is one of the kindest things you can offer. It builds trust. prevents resentment, and sets a tone of mutual understanding. It shows that you value yourself enough to be honest, and that you respect the relationship enough to be open. Clear communication also includes how you say things. Your tone, timing, and body language all play a role. It's not just about what you say, but the energy you bring when you say it. Being emotionally grounded, measured, and sincere in your delivery helps others receive your message without defensiveness. Assertiveness is not aggression. It's the balanced middle between passivity and forcefulness. Additionally, clear communication involves consistency. If you say one thing but do another, for example, you say you won't tolerate certain behavior, but you ignore it when it happens, your words lose weight. People learn from what you reinforce, not just what you say. That's why it's important to back your words with aligned actions. It's also crucial to remember that clear communication is a two-way street. It's not only about expressing your truth, but also about creating space for others to share theirs. When you communicate with openness and maturity, you invite the same in return, and that mutual transparency strengthens every relationship, whether personal or professional. By learning to speak your truth early, often, and with respect, you send a strong signal. I take myself seriously, and I expect others to do the same. You leave little room for misunderstandings, and you create an environment where authenticity is the norm. In doing so, you raise the standard not just for how others treat you, but for how they communicate with you as well. Setting boundaries is one of the most empowering acts of self-respect, yet many people struggle with it. Why? Because boundaries often challenge the comfort of others, and if you're someone who naturally wants to please, avoid conflict, or maintain peace at all costs, the idea of setting limits can feel intimidating. But here's the reality: if you don't define your boundaries, someone else will, and their version will almost never serve your best interest. Boundaries are not about shutting people out or being rigid. They're about creating healthy limits that protect your time, your energy, your emotional well-being, and your personal space. They clarify what you are willing to accept and what you will not tolerate. And far from being selfish, boundaries are a form of self-care that allows you to engage with others in a more honest, sustainable way. Think of boundaries like property lines around a house. Just as fences mark where your land ends and your neighbor's begins, personal boundaries mark the edges of your emotional, physical, and mental space. They say, "This is mine to manage, that is yours." Without these boundaries, people may unknowingly or deliberately overstep, impose, or even exploit. It's not about controlling others, it's about taking ownership of yourself. The key to effective boundaries is consistency. You can't just set them, you have to stick to them, even when it's inconvenient or uncomfortable. If someone repeatedly crosses a line and you do nothing, you're unintentionally teaching them that your limits are negotiable. Enforcing boundaries requires courage, especially with people who are used to having unrestricted access to you. But every time you uphold a boundary, you reinforce your self-worth and raise the standard for how others must treat you if they want to be in your life. Boundaries also need to be specific and actionable. A vague statement like "I need space" can be confusing. A clearer version would be, "I need some time alone this weekend to recharge, so I won't be available to talk or hang out." The more clearly you define your limits, the easier it is for others to respect them, and the harder it is for them to pretend they didn't understand. And remember, boundaries are not one size fits all. What works for one person may not work for you. Your boundaries are shaped by your values, your emotional capacity, your goals, and your lived experiences. You're not responsible for making others comfortable with your boundaries. You're responsible for honoring them yourself. There will be pushback. Some people will resist your boundaries, especially if they benefited from your lack of them. You might be called difficult, cold, or selfish. But often, this resistance is a reflection of their discomfort with your growth, not a signal that you're doing something wrong. In fact, the more firmly you hold your boundaries, the more you will attract people who respect and appreciate them, and the more natural it becomes to walk away from those who don't. Ultimately, setting and maintaining boundaries is an act of emotional maturity. It allows you to preserve your inner peace while engaging in relationships from a place of wholeness, not obligation. When you show people what is and isn't acceptable through your consistent actions, you teach them exactly how to treat you, and you create space for deeper, healthier, and more balanced connections. One of the most powerful yet subtle ways we teach people how to treat us is through what we tolerate. Every time we remain silent in the face of disrespect, minimize our own discomfort, or overlook behavior that crosses a line, we send a message, and that message is, "This is okay with me." The truth is, what you tolerate becomes your standard. If you allow someone to speak over you, dismiss your feelings, consistently show up late, take from you without giving, or guilt you into saying yes when you mean no, you are giving permission for those behaviors to continue. And over time, those small tolerances can snowball into patterns of mistreatment, resentment, and emotional fatigue. This doesn't mean you need to confront every minor annoyance or live in a state of constant conflict. But it does mean becoming more mindful and intentional about the behaviors, attitudes, and dynamics you allow into your life. Tolerating something once may feel easier than speaking up, but silence and avoidance usually lead to long-term discomfort both for you and for the relationship. Many people tolerate things because they don't want to rock the boat. They fear being seen as overreactive, ungrateful, or high maintenance, but keeping the peace externally while sacrificing your own inner peace is not sustainable. There is a difference between being flexible and being a doormat. One is rooted in self-awareness and mutual respect, the other in self-abandonment. It's important to recognize the internal signals that tell you when you're tolerating something you shouldn't. These often come in the form of physical tension, emotional exhaustion, gut discomfort, or recurring frustration. When you start feeling drained, uneasy, or disrespected in someone's presence, that's your internal boundary system speaking up. Don't ignore it. Also, understand that tolerating harmful behavior doesn't just affect your relationship with others, it affects your relationship with yourself. Every time you allow something that violates your values, you chip away at your self-trust. And the more you betray your own needs in silence, the harder it becomes to believe in your right to be treated well. This is why watching what you tolerate requires self-respect, awareness, and sometimes tough decisions. You may need to have uncomfortable conversations, reevaluate long-standing relationships, or make lifestyle changes that feel unfamiliar, but every time you say, "This is not okay with me," you are realigning your life with your integrity. You are affirming your value not through words, but through choices. It's not about being harsh or judgmental. It's about holding people and yourself accountable to the standards that support your emotional health and personal growth. People will sometimes test your boundaries, whether consciously or unconsciously. Your job is to notice those tests and respond with clarity and conviction, not with passive acceptance. In the end, what you tolerate today sets the tone for how others treat you tomorrow. The goal isn't perfection, it's progress. And the more intentional you become about what you allow, the stronger and more self-respecting your relationships and your life will be. One of the most effective and often underestimated ways to teach people how to treat you is by leading through your own behavior. How you treat others, how you treat yourself, and how you show up in the world sets the tone for your relationships. You are constantly communicating your standards, even when you're not speaking. People observe your actions, your energy, your reactions, and they take cues from all of it. When you carry yourself with self-respect, it encourages others to mirror that respect. If you speak with kindness but also assertiveness, if you honor your time and your word, if you show consistency between what you say and what you do, people learn that you are someone who values integrity, and they begin to interact with you accordingly. Leading by example starts with self-treatment. Ask yourself, do I treat myself the way I want others to treat me? Do you honor your own needs, speak kindly to yourself, set boundaries around your time and energy, and prioritize your well-being without guilt? If you constantly put yourself last, make excuses for others' mistreatment, or fail to enforce your own boundaries, you're signaling that it's okay for others to do the same. Your habits also reflect your standards. For example, if you're constantly overextending yourself, saying yes when you mean no, or neglecting your own goals to accommodate others, people may begin to see your time as negotiable and treat it with less value. But if you model balance, healthy boundaries, and clear communication, you set a tone of mutual respect. How you handle difficult situations also matters. If you allow yourself to be walked over without saying a word, it can become the norm. On the other hand, if you handle conflict with calm honesty and stand up for yourself without being aggressive, you show others what healthy self-advocacy looks like. You show them that it's possible to disagree while still maintaining dignity, both yours and theirs. Leading by example also means being accountable. If you expect honesty from others, be honest yourself. If you want loyalty, be loyal. If you want your boundaries respected, respect the boundaries of others. This doesn't mean perfection, we all slip up. But when people see you striving to embody the qualities you expect, they're far more likely to respond in kind. In fact, your behavior becomes a form of unspoken leadership, guiding others not just in how they treat you, but in how they treat themselves and others. There's also a powerful element of consistency in leading by example. People respect those who are grounded in who they are, regardless of the setting. When your values remain intact, whether you're dealing with a friend, a coworker, or a stranger, it sends a message. This is who I am, and this is how I operate regardless of who's watching. That kind of clarity invites respect and sets a clear standard that others will take seriously. Ultimately, leading by example is about aligning your behavior with your values and your expectations. It's not about demanding perfection from others while excusing it in yourself. It's about becoming the kind of person you want to attract and engage with, and in doing so, naturally elevating the quality of your relationships, your environment, and your life. One of the most powerful forms of self-respect is the ability to walk away from people, situations, and environments that consistently disregard your boundaries, values, and emotional well-being. It may sound harsh or dramatic, but the truth is, staying in places where you are mistreated or undervalued doesn't make you strong, it keeps you stuck. Sometimes the most courageous thing you can do is choose yourself, even if that means stepping away. People will often push limits, not always out of malice, but out of habit or entitlement. When you assert your boundaries or express your needs, and those boundaries are ignored or dismissed, it's a signal. It tells you that your words are not being respected, and at that point, continuing to explain yourself or hoping someone will change becomes emotionally exhausting and self-defeating. Walking away is not about being cold, unforgiving, or cutting people off at the first sign of conflict. It's about understanding the difference between someone who makes a mistake and takes accountability versus someone who makes a habit of disrespecting you and expects you to tolerate it. There's a clear line between working through challenges and enabling toxic patterns. When the latter becomes consistent, distance is not cruelty, it's clarity. What often holds people back from walking away is fear of being alone, fear of confrontation, fear of regret, or fear that maybe they're asking for too much. But if someone treats you poorly and refuses to take responsibility, you're not asking for too much, you're just asking the wrong person. Staying in a place where you're not valued sends a message to others and to yourself that your standards are flexible. But when you walk away, you reinforce your worth even if no one else validates it. Leaving doesn't always have to be a dramatic exit. Sometimes it's a quiet decision to stop chasing people who don't meet you halfway. Sometimes it's choosing not to return that call, not to send another message, not to continue justifying your position. And other times, it's setting a firm, respectful boundary and following through with action when it's crossed. It's also important to remember that walking away isn't just about people. It can also mean walking away from situations, jobs, habits, or environments that no longer align with who you are becoming. Growth often demands sacrifice, and the things that once felt familiar and comfortable may no longer serve your peace. Having the strength to release what no longer fits is part of stepping into the life and treatment you truly deserve. There's a kind of dignity that comes with knowing you have the option to walk away. It gives you leverage, not in a manipulative way, but in an empowering one. It says, I am not dependent on your approval or presence to feel whole. I know my value, and I'm willing to leave anything that compromises it. When people know that you're not afraid to remove yourself from unhealthy dynamics, They are much more likely to treat you with the respect you command, not because you threaten them, but because they understand that your self-worth is non-negotiable. And that clarity sets a lasting standard. Consistency is the glue that holds every boundary, expectation, and standard in place. While it's one thing to declare how you want to be treated, it's your consistent behavior that reinforces the message. People learn through patterns, not isolated moments. It's not just what you say once that defines your standard, but what you do every day, especially when it's inconvenient, uncomfortable, or emotionally charged. Teaching people how to treat you isn't a one-time event, it's an ongoing practice. The way you respond when someone tests your limits, how you carry yourself in different relationships, and how you handle both respect and disrespect all communicate your personal code. When your actions match your words over time, people begin to take you seriously. When they don't, your message becomes diluted, and others start to believe that your boundaries are flexible or situational. For example, if you tell someone you won't tolerate lateness but continue making exceptions without consequence, you're unintentionally training them to dismiss that boundary. Or if you say you need emotional safety in relationships but keep engaging with those who belittle or invalidate you, you send the message that your needs are optional. Inconsistency doesn't just confuse others, it confuses you. It weakens your self-trust and leads to internal conflict because deep down you know you're betraying your own standards. Consistency doesn't mean perfection. There will be times when emotions run high, when you second-guess yourself, or when old habits try to creep back in. But every time you choose to uphold your values, even in small, quiet ways, you reinforce your personal integrity. Over time, that builds a sense of internal alignment, where your actions, your words, and your sense of self are all moving in the same direction. It's also worth noting that consistency is key not just in moments of strength, but in moments of pressure. When someone challenges your boundaries or tries to guilt you into making an exception, how you respond matters more than what you said initially. If you hold firm, you reinforce your position. If you cave, you open the door to repeat offenses. People tend to test limits until they understand that those limits are real, and that only happens when you demonstrate reliability in your responses. Moreover, consistency extends beyond how you deal with others. It also applies to how you treat yourself. Are you consistently showing up for yourself the way you expect others to show up for you? Are you being honest with yourself about what you want, need, and deserve, and backing that honesty with daily decisions that reflect it? The more consistent you are in your self-care, your communication, and your boundaries, the easier it becomes to maintain those same standards externally. Ultimately, consistency is a form of self-leadership. It says, I don't just talk about my standards, I live them. It teaches others that your boundaries are not up for negotiation and that your values don't shift depending on who you're dealing with or how much you like them. It sets a clear, unwavering expectation, and that clarity builds respect, trust, and emotional safety in every relationship you enter.